Let's talk about these 504 plans. A 504 plan is a blueprint for how the school will provide supports and remove barriers for a student with a disability so that the student has equal access to general education curriculum. Some kids with learning and attention issues don't need special education or individualized instruction, but they might still need supports or services at school. Depending on their challenges, they may be able to get that help through a 504 plan. 504 plans are designed to help kids with disabilities learn alongside their peers. They do this by removing barriers to learning. They're not the same as individualized education programs or IEPs. They're each covered by different laws and work in different ways. But the end goal is the same: help students be successful in school. So what is a 504 plan? 504 plans are formal plans that schools develop to give kids with disabilities the supports that they need. These plans prevent discrimination and protect the rights of kids with disabilities in schools. They're covered under Section 504 of the Rehabilitation Act, which is a civil rights law. These plans aren't part of special education, so they don't provide individualized instruction like IEPs do. But a central purpose of the 504 plan is to give kids with disabilities access to the same education their classmates are getting. One way 504 plans do this is through what we call accommodations, like extended time on tests or the ability to leave the classroom for short breaks. Some students may also get related services through a 504 plan, like speech language therapy or study skills classes. Schools typically create written 504 plans, but they're not required to. There are no set rules for what a 504 plan should look like or what it should include. The only thing schools have to put in writing are their policies on 504 plans. So what goes into a 504 plan? 504 plans often include accommodations. These can include changes to the environment, changes to instruction, or changes to how curriculum is presented. Accommodations don't change what kids learn, just how they learn it. The goal is to remove barriers and give kids access to learning. Accommodations can address specific changes. For example, a child with ADHD who's easily distracted might get seating at the front of the class. A child with dyslexia might be allowed to use text-to-speech technology. And a student with slow processing speed might get extended time on tests. Some students may be able to get related services under a 504 plan. These could include occupational therapy or a study skills class that focuses on organization. Some students might also get support for social and emotional issues or for behavior challenges through 504 plan. I was also speaking with a local school nurse that I know. If a student has an incidental injury as a result of maybe in an accident or hurting themselves at school, 504 plans would make sure they have the accommodations they need. For example, if they're in a wheelchair and they need extra time to get to and from class, or they might need to use the elevator, 504 plans will cover that as well. While it's rare, 504 plans can provide modifications. So unlike accommodations, modifications do change what a student is taught or is expected to learn. Students might get fewer homework assignments, for instance, or they may be graded in a different way than their classmates. So how do you get a 504 plan? A 504 plan offers kids supports and accommodations. Its purpose is to remove barriers to learning in schools. These plans are for kids who don't need special education, but who do need support to learn. Many of the kids who get them are found to not be eligible for an IEP. And so if you are a parent who's attempted to get an IEP and that attempt has failed, you could approach the school looking for a 504 plan, or you could approach the school looking for a 504 plan to begin with. If that is you, here are some 7 steps that you can take for seeking one. First, document your child's needs. Your child must have a disability like a learning or attention issue to get a 504 plan. So start by gathering documents about your child's needs, including records that show a medical diagnosis. Other sources may be schoolwork, report cards, some private evaluations that you had done. And it will be good or helpful to organize these papers in a binder. Keep these records in one place. And this is also where some of the interventions we mentioned in the first episode of this workshop might fall into play. Having documentation that you have tried to secure alternative interventions to support your child at school. Find out who the school's 504 coordinator is. I know in St. Louis Public Schools, school nurses coordinate the 504 plans. So find out who the coordinator of the 504 process is in your school. Every school district must have a staff member who coordinates 504 plans, and this person may also be the IEP coordinator. And so that information should be able to be found on the school's website. And if you can't find it, reach out to the principal. Number 3, write a formal request for a 504 plan. You'll need to make a formal written request for a 504 plan. I have a sample letter or something that you can model if that's something you're interested in learning more about. But in your request, you need to be specific about why you're asking for the plan. For example, you might say, I would like a 504 plan for my child who due to ADHD needs frequent breaks throughout the day to be able to learn like peers. Okay. Number 4, follow up on your request. The 504 coordinator should respond promptly to your request. However, you can help the process by following up by email or phone after a few days. Number 5, go through the 504 plan evaluation process. The evaluation for a 504 plan isn't always as comprehensive as one for an IEP, but the school will still want to review your child's schoolwork, their medical records, and other documents. The school will also want to talk with and observe your child as well as interview you. And they'll also want to interview your child's teacher and possibly other school staff. Number 6, meet with the school to see if your child qualifies. After the evaluation, the school will most likely meet with you to decide if your child qualifies for a 504 plan. You can also request this meeting if the school doesn't schedule it on their own. If your child does qualify, you'll move to the next step. If not, it may be time to look at options for dispute resolution. Lastly, collaborate to create the 504 plan. If your child does qualify for a 504 plan, the school will work with you to create the plan. A written 504 plan is not required. However, most schools will create one. If they tell you they don't write them out, I would still insist that you try to get one anyway. If not, I'd write it out, possibly have the coordinator sign it, and make sure that everyone is on the same page about the services and supports that should go forward at this point. So you can also acquire a 504 plan through the standard IEP process. That's why if you're not sure if your child needs an IEP or a 504 plan, it may be best to request an evaluation for an IEP. Start with something that might need more specific individualized services, and if you are denied those, you'll at least still have the evaluation and the conversation in place to start discussing whether or not a 504 plan would be more suitable. So if you have any additional questions about that, feel free to hit me up and let me know, and thanks for tuning in again.